Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new Fallout 76 build. So, I don't often do shelter builds for a number of reasons, but this one, the Root Cellar, really caught my eye and stood out. So, let's have a look at this. Okay, so for the moment, we are up on the surface. We'll have a look at the entrance to this. This is my stone cottage I did the other week that I cut the corner off the front porch there. If you want to have a look at this one, I'll link it around for you. But we're going to head around to the back to where the entrance to the shelter is, as this is pretty darn cool. And, you know, shelter build, we might as well show the entrance off. There we go. So the entranceway here, the hatch, is basically the same as the one for the Pittsburgh Street shelter from a while back. It's a little bit different, there's a few minor details, but given that this is a root cellar, or cellar in general, the entrance pretty much makes sense. So, yeah, this one surprised me and also quite impressed me. So let's have a look at what's down there, shall we? Okay, so this first space is what I thought from looking at it on the Atomic Shop was actually the whole shelter. I wasn't sure about the proportions, but I thought it was going to be much smaller, which would have solved one of the usual problems I have with shelters, which is that they are too big for the amount of budget they have available. Same problem kind of with camps, really. But as it turns out, this place is much, much larger than anticipated. And you'll see why in a moment, but my basic theme for this was that the person living here is a wannabe superhero, and you'll see why the wannabe in a minute as well. And the shelter is basically going to be their superhero lair, Batcave type deal. So we're heading through all of this junk in the main part of the cellar, or the front part of the cellar, that conceals the hidden entrance to the lair beyond. So I put the door in there, the hidden door, just to kind of cover up that entrance. It moved in quite nicely. It doesn't snap in. It doesn't snap in down here either, but it did a good job to hide that kind of entrance, especially with all the other stuff piled up there. We'll head on down this corridor. I kept quite plain because I didn't want to give away too much of what was beyond the vault door. Again, this one didn't snap in, but had to be carefully positioned in. And here we go, into the much larger space that came as a bit of a surprise, to be honest. Here is my would-be superhero's lair. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that I did because I thought it would just look fun and also try to lean into that superhero vibe, or would-be superhero vibe. Some stuff's maybe not quite there because it's Fallout, not some kind of superhero game, so I'm working with the tools available, but it came out quite well, I think. So one of the first things I thought to do was put second layer up on either side here, sort of use the height that we've got in the space, which is pretty decent. And I'll show you exactly what I did to put these floors in just a moment. But there was also, because this is quite a large space, a bit of dead space that I wanted to kind of fill up. I didn't want to go too far with the scrappy look on this, mostly just because it was supposed to be a functional, you know, superhero kind of vibe as opposed to the usual scrappy thing. So. But I also didn't want too much empty space either. So, heading up to the upper layer first, or this side of it, I wanted to divide each section off and kind of have it separate functional areas. So that's kind of what I've gone for. And this first area is a gym type deal to get our would-be superhero into shape. So you can see we're on a couple of the upper floors here. Got a fair bit of decoration around. And to get these in, basically with most of the structural work in here, it was just freehanding stuff into place. So you can see where the arch sticks out there, which is a really cool feature of the space, but makes putting floors up here a bit more difficult. So in order to get this in place, I put the half floors in there in the recess up next to it, so I could see how far those were going to stick out from the wall, and then freehanded the larger pieces in front of it into place so that the gap between two pieces lined up with the centre of the arch there, or kind of vaulting anyway, and then snapped the larger pieces onto the side to create a total of 4. Then free-handed the half pieces back in place behind because they don't quite line up. The sizes are a little bit weird. It did leave a bit of a gap there, which is why we've got the fencing around it so you don't fall down it, but it works. And as I say, the free-handing is part of the reason why there's a couple of little flaws in places here and there, but I quite like the effect overall. So, one of the common features of superhero lairs is various things on display, so often relating to the defeat of various villains. So here's a whole load of stuff on display. It works out quite nice. We've got some outfits and potentially useful disguises maybe, or varying types of outfit for our would-be hero. I'm really happy we're using the encampment bridge here in the middle, because it connects the two upper levels quite nicely. There's a couple of tiny little issues in that I had to freehand it in, but I wanted to do this because I kind of, once the idea popped into my head and the visuals of it, I was pretty clear it was going to look quite cool. But one of the big problems with that encampment bridge is when you use it in a camp, you can't do that with it. Namely, it snaps only to its end pieces, which only sit very close to the ground, so it's not really much of a bridge at all. It would make way more sense for it to snap onto upper floors, which it just doesn't do. But down here in the shelter, you can just freehand these pieces in and then snap them to each other, and it works. And I quite like the look there. It kind of creates quite a striking image, I think. Whole load more stuff stored down here, and some kind of stuff to break down and kind of fill up the space as well. And the billboards did a really nice job of kind of decorating up the otherwise plain walls as well, which would have required a lot of small bits and pieces if I hadn't used something so large. So I think they work quite well there. So we're going to make our way up to the top here on this side, and it's basically the same as the other side, structurally speaking. But we've got a kitchen first up, and it seemed like a bit of a strange thing in some ways to put in a superhero's lair, but I suppose they've got to eat, and figuring out exactly what to put in each space ended up being a bit of a challenge, really. Combination of tools available and concepts. We've got a cooking station in there, which I merged into that stove, and a few other bits and pieces. Decided to keep these tables quite plain because I wanted to lean more towards mess hall than dining room, if that makes sense. Kind of a bit more of a military-esque, if not actually military, vibe. There's also no water options that you can put in shelters, so no sink there, which is a bit unfortunate. So coming on to this last upper section, we've got the Enclave planning table, which I thought was a kind of planning area, sort of place for a superhero to figure out what he's going to do next. This worked quite well in here. We sort of went with a bat computer vibe at the back there as well, using the dark sort of bank of computers there. It worked quite well. A little while to get that into place in the way I wanted it, but came out okay. And I added a whole bunch of extra stuff on the top because it looks kind of plain without stuff kind of scattered around, I felt. I decided to put the chain link fence up as sort of the edges of this upper level because I wanted it enclosed to feel like kind of separate space to the rest of it, but not too separate, whereas if I put walls in, obviously it would be fully solid enclosed. This is sort of a halfway house. The rusty kind of effect with the leaves and stuff maybe not quite ideal in this situation. A clean chain link might have gone a little better. But the only option we've got on that is the communist one, which has barbed wire on it, which would also be weird, so it is what it is. I really do like the design down here with the brick and the bolting. It reminds me of a mod from Fallout 4, actually, a little bit, which is quite fun. Really cool space. So yeah, decided to put a few bits and pieces on to dress up the bridge, otherwise it looked a little plain. And you see we've got our, what will eventually be our hero's vehicle, our would-be Batmobile in the middle there, which is one of the reasons it's a would-be hero, because they haven't finished that yet. So under here we've got our weapons crafting space. A lot of stuff stored theoretically for making weapons, repairing weapons, creating new ammo, things like that. There's always one set of displays somewhere that I forget to put stuff on, so there it is this time. So yeah, we've only got the one, well, we have got a car workbench, but I felt this one kind of fit better in the space rather than having it up in the air. But definitely do like having this destroyed car. It's quite cool having it on the cinder blocks there. Put a few extra bits around it for use in repairing it, but it's a work in progress. So yeah, hence the would-be hero, as their vehicle is yet to be finished off. Currently exploring the wasteland on foot. It is still a Fallout build, obviously, so going to have the chemistry station and the brewing station in as well. A few bits and pieces around here to dress that space up, most of it kind of tying into the chemistry theme. But cabinet at the end there, I decided rather than trying to merge stuff onto the shelves, I would put a couple of plywood boards on the front, close it off instead. Saved a little bit of time, and I'm sort of nearly used all of the budget on this, so not a lot of room left over to be doing stuff like that. So, superheroes tend to get injured in the course of their activities, so they do need a medical space. That's what started squeezing down the end here. Use the concrete barricades there to sort of close this space off, because I wanted it to feel more like a separate room than the rest of it did. Not quite sure why I decided to put the satellite dish there. Something big to fill up the space, but it's kind of out of the eye line, so neither here nor there in a way. Hospitals and medical spaces are a bit difficult to do at the best of times because we only have some sort of related stuff. But I did what I could to imply that. Close the gap off there with some plywood responder signs and some window boards as well. Kind of stack that up to close off that top section. Doubled up a set of curtain doors there because medical spaces, curtains rather than solid doors are more the right vibe. Quite like how that came out. The ideas there. Just about managed to line those up, given that they're facing opposite directions, but you can't tell unless you look really closely, so that's quite cool. So this alcove down here at the end is supposed to be illuminated, and I'm not quite sure why it isn't. Didn't notice that until after I'd done the tour. But the idea here is, behind leaving it blank, that end wall there would sort of slide up and back and out the way, so that the vehicle can go out that way, or you can climb down onto a lower level through that grating, perhaps as a secret exit to the secret lair. That's my headcanon for that space, or at least once the vehicle is functional anyway. Again, struggled to figure out what to do with this little bit of space here, so I decided to make it a space for study wasteland creatures, as it's the sort of thing our would-be hero would be facing off against. So put a little raised platform in here just for a bit of interest, just free-handed in some floors in here, just to give it a little bit of extra height, and use the creatures in tubes. Went for some of the more exotic ones to kind of create that interesting what's out there vibe, which is quite fun. A couple of computers to do the research on. Not quite sure where the output of those would be, but let's not overthink that. So under here we've got a whole load of storage of stuff to scrap and break down, mostly for use in either repairing the vehicle or continuing to repair gear and equipment. Definitely quite like the look of that. Yeah, a few more bits around there for the car. Got that circle in the floor in the middle there around the drain. I thought kind of created quite a cool vibe for putting the vehicle on. And under this last section, we have the armor crafting section, so power armor and the regular armor bench as well. A whole load of bits and pieces there, just to add a little bit of interest and decoration. Yeah, all in all, kind of a battle in some ways to make this feel like a superhero's lair, or as I say, would-be superhero's lair, with their unfinished vehicle and the like. But I think kind of got the general vibe, sort of concealed lair of some kind anyway. I'm quite happy with that. And I got to use a few fun building elements and do things that I don't normally get to do, like the bridge there, which I'm quite happy with. I really like this sort of vaulted underground space. Budget-wise, my normal issue with shelters is that the budget doesn't extend far enough to really fully decorate the shelter, and that is kind of still an issue here. The space is quite large. If it didn't have either the front part or the back part, if either piece wasn't there, there'd be plenty of budget. But it is what it is, I guess, so it doesn't quite work out. On the other hand, it's a really cool space, and I really do like that. Sometimes with the various shelters, they have such a strong theme to them already that you kind of can't get away from that. The vaults, for example. So trying to make them into anything other than the vault's a bit weird, but for this one, you can kind of work with it a little bit more and make an interesting sort of concealed underground space, and I do quite like it for that. And yeah, quite pleased with how this has come out, and it's, yeah, I think we've achieved the goal of making a superhero lair. So, I hope you folks enjoyed that one. If you did, please consider dropping subs and likes. I very much appreciate. Down below, as always, you'll find social media links, merch store, channel memberships, notification bell, all that good stuff. If you want to support the channel in that way, I hugely appreciate it. Really, really helps out. So thank you very much for that. And if you get a chance to join us for live streams as well, we are, of course, playing Fallout 76 and plenty of Starfield too, so I hope to see you there. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.